Hello, Sugan.
Good morning, E.
Good morning.
Just waiting for a couple of minutes for people to join.
Okay. Did you hear any noise from my side?
There's like tiny little bit of background noise, but it doesn't bother anyone at all, I
Okay.
think. Yeah, it's
Okay.
fine.
Yes.
Hello,
Thank you.
Suga. How are you?
Hi,
Hi,
Bin.
Bin Bin. Gonna start sharing my screen. Okay, I think I have my windows set up. There is a Zoom, so I'm sharing my Chrome process window, but then there's like a bar in the middle of the screen that Zoom has all the Zoom menus, but it's kind of like on and off, and I'm trying to work out how to drag it away. But does it block the view at all?
Nope, it looks good to me.
Okay, so the Chrome window doesn't get blocked by the Zoom window. Then I'll just leave it as is. Thanks. So we will do a little bit of triaging if we have time later. A quick review of the pull request first. Wondering if Juncheng's on the call. So I know Juncheng opened a new PR. So does that mean 1150 can be closed?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I can think with Junchen later.
Okay, thank you. Add vulnerability report verifier. I think most of the comments have been resolved in the PR. And is this ready for another round of review, Akash?
Uh, yeah, I think I resolved most of them. There's a few that are outstanding, one which was around the versioning. So I haven't really looked into that, and I'm not sure if it'll make it in this PR, but we can maybe discuss later on for that. But yeah, apart from that, I think I've addressed everything. And if there's time remaining at the end of the meeting, I just want to run through exactly what the constraint template as well as the CR rules are so that we're on the same page functionality wise. And then if that looks good, then we can probably do a final round of review and hopefully merge this in.
Yep, sounds good. So with the versioning, the current implementation says it's vulnerability report 1.0.0. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's just I just did exactly what the other plugins do. I didn't really look much into versioning.
Yeah, it won't work if you label it alpha because in the reconciler, in the controller for the verifiers, we have put a static string of 1.0.0 because currently the CRs doesn't have a version.
Got it. So it's hard coded right now to the V1.
Exactly. Yeah, we will need to add a version property to the CRD, I think.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, otherwise there's no way to pass that information in unless we do a hack and add it to the properties of the CR.
Yeah.
What do you think? the consideration here is like, okay, are we releasing, do we want to release the vulnerability plugin as 1.0 or do we want to have like an alpha?
I don't know. We've for all the other plugins, we've just gone straight to 1.0. So
Yeah,
unless,
exactly.
yeah, because if I personally don't think we should block on introducing a new pattern until we at least have the plumbing set up to support the new pattern. So once we've introduced the versioning, then maybe the next plugin can start with the alpha. But until we
Yep.
have that, maybe it's okay.
Yep, sounds good. Yep, I will create an issue for versioning, supporting versions in the CR for verifiers, or in general for plugins in general. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's another discussion here, like should we wire it up for the default Helm chart?
Yeah. That's a good
I
point.
think it's somewhere, but it's definitely not for this PR, but is that, so we have a release coming up next week, right? Do we want to have a PR that will have a kind of a feature flag that you can turn on the verifier?
I don't know. I'm okay with it. Because it's not going to affect anyone apart from it being already installed. So if anything, it saves maybe someone's a step if they just go using the Helm chart. But what is like what is going to be the guidance moving forward? Is when
Yeah.
you updated SBOM, is that also going to be installed? Is every single external plugin that's in the tree of the repository also going to become installed in the Helm chart? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I was thinking, like, if we were to compare to Caverno, like out of the box, the features, like if they say we can verify SBOM, we can verify vulnerability, like those are turned on by default after the Helm install. Is that correct?
Yes. So currently we would like we do with the cosign verifier, right? We turn it on
Yep.
by default, but we could also have the resource. Well, I guess we want to have the resource installed on the cluster regardless. And it'll only get invoked if you have a artifact that matches the artifact type of that verifier.
Yes.
So even if it's default on, it's probably okay because if you don't have that artifact, it's a no op basically, right? So
Yeah. Like from the ease of install perspective, if they looked at the values and they see, oh, they also support SBOM verification, and for SBOM and vulnerability report, we can even leave the default as off, but exposing that to Helm chart kind of advertises them.
yeah, that makes sense. I'm okay doing that. I can actually add it to this PR too if we want to do
Oh, no, don't add it to this PR.
that. Okay, yeah,
We
it's
don't want more
already
things in this PR.
yeah, it's got I think like 8,000 changes in this PR already. So
Yeah. So so I think we can merge this one in, and then we can do another PR to wire it up just for the ease of customer installation, so that they don't have to, like, if the whole mindset is like they want to install Ratify and just play with the values that we provide, and it's not too much work to hook it up, then let's do it for them.
okay, yep, sounds good to me.
Thank you, Akash. Cool. So I will have another look at this PR today, and hopefully I think we can aim to merge this in this week.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks.
Oh, accidentally closed the GitHub window. We're up to pull request. 1175 multi-tenancy support discussion. I think Xinghe left some comments, which is good. Like, it's good to have his eyes on these. Bin, do you have any clarification questions or any blockers for the design doc?
I think it's all good. And also I create a vote in the discussion for the two models. So I guess I'm just opening this PR so that they can, so everyone can like check it before like making a vote.
Sounds good. I also left some suggestions on
Okay.
maybe adding like an open discussion or open question list. It's like with the goal that we can align on the implementation, at least the initial implementation, like and then hope to get this checked in and then like get along with the implementation.
Yeah.
Next PR is 1187. So thank you, Binbin and Akash. I think both of you are working with Jingcheng on reviewing this. Are we on track to get this merged this week or next week?
So the initial plan was to merge it this week. I needed to check with Junter to see if we can do it.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So Luis is not on the call, but I'm assuming we are still on track to release next week. Like that's releasing next week is still the plan. We haven't
I
really
think so.
discussed it.
Yeah.
Currently, we only have two PRs, one from Akash and one from Junter. And if we can merge both of them, I think the release should be good.
Yep. I also have just added a PR for the SBOM verifier. So it's still currently in draft mode because I'm still trying to figure out the CLI test. So seeing how big Akash's PR is, I've taken the more iterative approach. So in the files, I've just added the logic for the SBOM validation, the unit test, and my plan is in this PR only to include the CLI end-to-end test. So it'll be, I'm adding like a configuration JSON with the deny properties and just validate that the verification failed. Are people okay with that? Like this way, the PR is still small because I haven't started doing the Rego pieces, but we still have some test coverage for basic verification.
Yeah, I think that's fine. It's better than dumping all the Rego like I did in the other PR.
I just think it's easier to go through the PR as well. And then after this PR, I can work on the end-to-end validation, the Rego, and the documentation.
Yeah, and this wouldn't like get it would all be in one release, right? It wouldn't be staggered over a few releases. Like this PR wouldn't merge, let's say next week, and then go out in 1.1, and then the extra stuff would go out in 1.2. It would all just be in 1.2.
Yeah. I'm hoping that they can be released together so that people would see, oh, this is how you run it in the CLI. This is how you do it in the Kubernetes cluster.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good.
Yep. So in the note, yeah, I've just put like next PR adding documentation and the cluster end-to-end test. One difference is Akash, because the SBOM verifier already exists, some of the changes are not 100% backwards compatible. So for example, we discussed the extension field, right, of the verifier report. That the extension should be a map, like similar to the vulnerability report that you had the violations. So before the creation info is a message. Sorry, not a message. The creation info is the object. And now I've added to the map. But I think assuming this is more of like the SBOM v1 plugin. It's more like a demo. I think it shouldn't break anybody. I think it's fine to change the structure of the extensions property.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's actually using that. I think it's a reasonable assumption.
Yeah. Yeah, I've left the message the same, schema is good.
Okay.
Though, yeah. And also the other point to point out is, so since there is a 1.0.0 already, I'm releasing the SBOM verifier with the deny list as 1.1.0 alpha 0.1. And if I labeled, like I had a discussion with Bin Bin before, like, yes, we haven't figured out the version, but at least this way I have said this is not an official release of another version of the SBOM verifier. And this is kind of compatible that it'll also validate, like this verifier would be okay in our reconciler logic. What is it called? The controller, verifier controller, because we've hard coded the 1.0.0. But the whole versioning is like, it's kind of just doesn't really work. But what the intention here is just to say that this is not the final version. And if we decide to change this behavior, we're in the safe zone. Go ahead, Bin Bin.
Okay, so I think currently we specify both the current version and the supported versions in the plugin code. I wonder if we should like follow the notation way. So the notation need users to like specify the compatible version in the CLI flag or some config. So in Ratify, so that means we might need to specify the supported version in the like CR or something else instead of hard coded in the plugin code.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying earlier. I will create a tracking issue for adding version to the properties of the verifier and the store CRD. Sorry, not the properties, as a, like, how we have the name and properties, and we also have like address or something like that, right?
Yes.
So the version would sit at the top level along with the name.
And also I think in that case, so there will be no anything like breaking change or something else, because users can always specify a new version in the CR, and CR is not a breaking change. Is that right?
Sorry, I'm confused. Come again.
So for example, if the current CR is specifying like 1.0 and we released a 2-point version, and then users just need a new CR file. But this is not a break change because the structure and the schema is not changed, but we only need to update some value of this CR. It's just
I see.
It's just like creating a new verifier with different configurations.
Got it. But we all agree that we should add a version to the CRD.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yep. I will create that issue.
One question, Susan, do you think it should be a 2.0 and not a 1.1?
Yeah, so I was thinking, right? So like it is a major feature, but it's also backwards compatible, because before the SBOM validation was just on the schema, it's reading the file in using JSON reader provided by the SPDX tool. I don't know. What do you think? Like I'm okay putting it 2.0.0 alpha 1 if we believe it's like a yeah. I agree with you, Akash. I think given 1.0 V1 is more of like a demo, this would be V2. Yeah. I'll make that update. It's not like a small update.
Yeah, exactly. Like backwards compatibility, maybe technically you could get away with 1.1, but I think logically it's a completely different verifier. So
Yep. I agree. Okay. So that's everything on our coding repository. Let's have a look at the doc repository. Add vulnerability report verifier. Is this one also ready for a round of review?
yes, yeah. So I addressed all of your comments, Susan, and I think almost all except for one of Feynman's comments, and I'll add that. But apart from that, I think it's ready for another round.
Okay, yes, I'll take a look today.
Great, thanks.
And add version doc, we went through this one last week. Are there any pending items or can we merge it?
So I added a releases markdown document like we had discussed last time, explaining
Yep.
how do you actually release. And then I see, Feynman, you love to comment about the next. I also agree that the name is kind of misleading. This is actually the default name that Docusaurus uses. But if we want to change it, I can look into changing it. Do you think we should override it?
Yeah, I think this kind of version control model in the website is reasonable. I think we can choose that model for the version name. And I'm in favor of using the actual version name, like v1.1.0 with preview label instead of the next. Next means everything, right? It means anything. It's ambiguous to me. So if we can change the version name, I think we are good to merge this PR.
Okay, sure. I'll look into how do we override that default value.
Thank you, Feynman. Thank you, Akash. Okay, any other related discussion for PRs before we move on to the agenda? No? Okay. Back to our list. Thank you for adding this to the agenda, Binbin. Do you want to tell us what's the action item on this poll?
I, I just want to add it as a reminder to everyone in the community. Maybe I can send it out in the Slack channel so that we can make a vote on the two models. But I think currently we already support that we should do the deployment per cluster.
Yep.
But yeah.
Hi, E, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have one question, but may not be related to this poll. I just want to understand the timeline for the multi-tenancy. So, so this feature will be across release, right? And so it will not be released in 1.2, 1.1, sorry. So maybe in 1.2, right?
Right.
Okay, so we are targeting 1.2. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great point, E. It could be a multi-release feature. And Binbin, if you, in the comment for the design doc, it'll be good to prioritize which one as the important ones. And then if we can agree, like the first release, these are the set of features that we're going to support. And
Yes,
then we
that's
can
right.
agree on what would we focus on for the initial iteration.
Yeah, sure. Because I think there are a lot of areas I need to do the refactoring. So
Yeah.
it will not be a single PR, it will be multiple PRs.
Okay, I think that's a good point. We can review the work items for multi-tenancy and agree on the priority. Yeah, I think they are fundamental work, right? As Binbin, you mentioned some refactoring work, and there could be some work that related to some scenario, but we can discuss that once we have that list. Is that okay, Bingbing? If you can have a list of work items we are going to do, we can take a
Yes,
look.
yes. I'm planning to do that.
Okay, thanks.
And Akash, you brought up in the beginning that you want to agree on the Rogo policies or the constraint templates. Are you ready now?
Yes, yeah. So let me share my screen.
Sure. Make a host.
Okay. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep, I can see it now.
Okay, so I'm going to use this Yee's comment as kind of the jumping off point. So I'll walk through for each of these points, what is the current user experience like to configure that. So image should have a vulnerability report. So this is actually enforced at the constraint template level, evaluate the latest report that's also at the constraint template level. This field maximum age, that's now at the vulnerability report verifier CR level. Validate the signatures, that's at the constraint template level. And then these last two things are at the CR, the vulnerability CR level. So to walk you through exactly what that looks like, I'm going to use this. So this is going to be the template we're going to recommend to people. And at the top of the template, I've kind of listed exactly what this constraint template is checking for. So it does a few standard things that we do across all of our constraint templates we publish. One is it checks for any system errors returned from the external data provider, which is Ratify. Checks if there are any individual errors for any of the images that were verified by Ratify. And then these ones are specific to this verifier. So the first thing it does is it checks that, okay, you have to have at least one vulnerability report that existed attached to the image. And that's the first thing that's checked. If it passes that, then it continues on to check, okay, we only want to consider the latest vulnerability report. And so in the template, there's some extra processing that goes on to actually extract the annotation, which is your org.opencontainers.image.created annotation that exists on the vulnerability report artifact. And that's in a standard RFC 3339 timestamp that's specified by the OCI spec. So we're just using that pre-existing annotation. It uses that annotation to extract that artifact's creation time. And then based off of the current time of evaluation, it can extract what is the latest report that we want to actually verify. So it only considers the latest report. Any other reports are not verified at all. Then using the latest report, it's going to actually run through the rest of the validation. So first it checks to see that, okay, for that report, is the is success field in that verifier report true? And then the next thing is if there are vulnerability reports, if there's a notary project signature attached to that vulnerability report, and we define this user defined variable up here, which is required signature. And if that's set to true, then we will consider any nested reports. So the nested report would be the signature verifier report and enforce that that report must be true. And so this is kind of one of the only things that the user needs to be aware of and toggle according to their use case. So by default, right now I've kept it to false, but we can discuss if we want to keep it to true as default too. But it would require that the user come in and update this variable if they do want to do signature validation on the vulnerability report too. So that's that's how the template works. So now at the CR level, that's where all of the other verifications happen. So let me bring this up. And I think we've already seen this, but I'll just quickly walk through. So this is where the rest of the fields can be adjusted by the user at any time. So your maximum age, your list of disallowed severities, and I've updated the documentation to add like the common disallowed severities that we typically see. So that's low, medium, high, critical, as well as unknown. But the verifier is flexible where if another format comes out and you specify that, then it'll work. Similarly, denialist CVEs, this is again just a CVE ID that you can find, and I've also linked a link to the NIST CVE database, the national database, I guess that's monitored and maintained by the government, the US government, and so you could query your CVEs there and potentially extract IDs if you need to. So yeah, these properties you define and update inside the CR. And then if you want to mess with anything related to like signature validation or latest report and things like that, that's where you would update the constraint template. And more specifically, you'd update this variable here. So that's what the user interaction looks like. Is that kind of on the same page what you were thinking, Yi, or are we missing something?
Thanks, Akash. I have several questions. One is, so how can the user configure how they can configure the how to say the configuration for verified signatures? So that means the same config for the image, right? I mean, if user want to enable this flag set to true, and how can they know or how can they configure the parameters for verifying signatures?
I see, like the certificates and things like that. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, you're right. It's a dependence on, you have to have the notation verifier configured as well.
But the notation verifier is a built-in plugin that's that the user would configure the certificate in the values file on Ratify install.
Yep.
Okay. So in this case, we have this template, and if user want to enable the signature verification, they need to do another configuration for the notation verifier, right? And if they know it is cosine signature, then they need to configure a different configuration for cosine verifier, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's the current experience.
Okay. Then another question is about the how you check this timestamps, the creation time. So you can you scroll down a bit?
Right here.
The annotation, right? So can user configure this annotation? I mean, you extract the value from this org open container image created this annotation, right?
Yes.
So so currently I'm not sure whether there will be a different user specified annotation. So I'm thinking whether it's possible that the user can configure it.
Yes, we can. So that would require updating the actual verifier to be more flexible. Right now, I assume that because it's a built-in OCI annotation, that's likely what people would use. But if you're saying that it's not necessarily true, then we can make it flexible so that you can provide the actual annotation name and we'll search for that.
So it's like user modify this template maybe in the beginning to
Yeah.
set an annotation name, and in this function it will read the name from the parameter, right? Like you did for the require signature.
Yeah, so you could do that here, but that would also affect the actual implementation of the vulnerability report verifier, because we also do the maximum age checking, and for that it needs to know what is the creation timestamp to look for.
Okay.
Yeah. So configuration, if you need to use a custom annotation, would have to be in two places. It would have to be both in the constraint template and also in the custom resource for the vulnerability report, which is not ideal. So if you think that we need this flexibility, I can surface both in both the constraint template and in the custom resource as a field that's configurable. But it's going to require that both of them be aligned and equal to each other. Otherwise, you're going to run into issues.
Yeah. So for the vulnerability report verifier, so it's hard coded, right? For this, I mean for this annotation.
Yes.
How this? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For this annotation part, I needed to check with authority, because currently, I'm not sure whether their specification defined this, but I will check with Tordy. He's not in this meeting. I will check with him. But for now, we can use this one. Okay, this is the second question. So in general, another question. So this is for the admission, right? For the admission controller. So if I would like to use it in the CI/CD, how can I do that?
Yeah. So that's a good point. So we can't use this constraint template, this Rego as it's written exactly, because the way our Rego policy provider works is it checks for some different fields, but we would use essentially the same template here, the same Rego here, and edit it slightly to work at the Rego policy provider level too. But what I can do is I can actually write the edited Rego policy that can be used with that Rego policy provider. So in your CI/CD scenario, you could do the same thing.
Is it possible that the same code can be shared across different scenarios? So currently, actually, I'm preparing a document that for Ratify, we are targeting the policies to evaluate images and attestations, right? So it could be admission controller, it could be CSCD, and in the future, it could be at the node level, for example, the container runtime. So maybe we can consider the same policy file we can use for different scenarios. So I mean, here in this template, the Rego maybe, I'm not familiar with the implementation, just an idea. Maybe the Rego part could be in another file. And for admission controller, it can read the policy from another file and build this template. And in CI/CD, because it doesn't rely on the gatekeeper, it's just use that policy file. It's in a Rego language. And also for the container runtime, it's similar, so that we have the same Rego applies to different scenarios.
I see. So are you saying that we should be able to take in a Rego file and then either in admission control scenario, be able to generate the constraint template. And if we're not in an admission control scenario, we can just use the Rego directly. Is that the goal?
Yeah, I think in that case, we can just, for example, document to our users. We have this Rego template, right? It can be used for evaluate vulnerability report. You can update parameters or change some logic based on your need, but this is the default one. It can solve some problems, and you can just use it for different scenarios. I'm not sure this is a good idea, and I don't know whether in this template YAML it can read the content from another file. I don't know. But anyway, this is not that related to your current work. It's just some idea for discussion. If we want to consider the CI/CD and other scenarios, how can we share the same code so that we don't need to modify code in different places, right?
Yeah. I see the value in that. There's we need to do some work in order to standardize it, because right now that's not possible. The same Rego cannot be used identically in both scenarios, primarily because we do a lot of, we call the remote data provider, the external data, and that just won't happen when we.
Okay.
So there's certain things that we'd have to rework. And like you're saying, maybe it's possible to extract a portion of this and then read that from file, and that's like the common policy between the two. But yeah, we need to explore it and figure out what's feasible.
Yeah. For that, yeah, we can discuss that later. Okay. So currently, for vulnerability report, this policy user needed to apply this template. And if user want to configure signature, user need to change the notation, update the notation verifier. And also we have a new vulnerability report verifier user needed to update the configuration, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Actually, ideally, I think it will be better experience that user just need to update the parameters in one place. But currently, user need to do in several configuration file, right? We can consider later if we can have a better way that user just need to do configuration in one place, then it can apply it to different verifiers.
Yes, yeah. I think that goes back to your orchestrator discussion, right? Have like
Yeah.
a single policy config that. Yep.
Yes, because user in current way, I understood, but user needed to switch to different file and update, right? But from user point of view, they know what they want to config, and based on the configuration, actually Ratify knows which verifier should be enabled or called, right?
Yeah. For now, would you find if we hook this up to the values file of the Helm chart, is that sufficient where we can kind of abstract away the user having to edit, at least on installation, having to edit all of these individual different resources? We can kind of map certain values to certain configurations that should be deployed. This doesn't help with non-installation scenarios, but it could ease the initial setup at least.
Yeah.
That's solve some problem during installation. But in some cases, at the installation, user may not need to know. For example, if we have several policies, maybe not all the policies are enabled at the installation. So some policies user want to enable them after installation. So in that case, user need to update the files, right? So we could do during installation, user provide some initial values, but there are cases that user needed to do after installation. And also we have this update case, right? If user want to update the policy, user still need to modify different places.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I think that goes back to what we were discussing before, and how it would probably be quite a large effort to support something like that, but we need to plan it out and discuss how we do it.
Yeah, this is our current flow. We don't need to do this for your vulnerability work and also students' spawn work. We can figure out later a better way to do that.
Sure.
Just a question, Akash. Like if we did the Helm chart, right? If we said if the vulnerability verifier is enabled, then would we apply this policy that's currently on the screen?
No, we wouldn't. The user still has to apply the constraint template separately, and I don't think we should be applying gatekeeper resources in our Helm chart beyond what we do already.
Got it. So this is just a sample right now, and it's used in the end-to-end test for the vulnerability report end-to-end.
Yes, it will be used in that. I need to update it. Currently, the end-to-end test just uses our basic check is success through.
Okay.
But yeah, this needs to be updated to use that.
Got it. Thanks.
One more question. So this is for vulnerability, right? So if later Susan has spawn, so there will be another template, right?
Yes, correct.
Yep. And if they want both vulnerability verifier and the SBOM verifier, then the customer would need to merge these two constraint template.
So we only,
Would they?
sorry, can we have a different template? If that is the case, it's a very difficult.
No, it should be separate, I think. We can apply multiple constraint templates then.
Okay, and then it will be good.
I think I remember Kyverno has a similar model to enable different constraint templates or constraint YAML files. Those policy files, right? Those are separate policy template files listed on their website, and the users can choose which policy they want to apply for their cluster. But if there are some common logics in the Rego policies, I think maybe this idea is helpful. We can put the common logics on the top and list separate policies like SBOM, vulnerability check, vulnerability report check, and other policy checkers under the common logics. But I don't know. I think the current model is acceptable for me. So users need to apply different templates if they want different policies used or applied in their cluster, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, sorry, actually, my idea is not a common logic, then there will be several policy. I mean, the same template, I mean, the Rego language written policy, this can be used for the CI/CD and other scenarios. So my idea is that maybe we can share the same Rego policy. It could be vulnerability, it could be spawn, it could be others, but we can share the same Rego policy. It can be used for CI/CD and for admission controller, but for admission controller, we need to do some extra things, is that we need to put this Rego language inside this template. This is required by the gatekeeper. I mean that.
Maybe we can create an issue to track that idea. So thus we can,
Yes,
thus we can
yeah. Currently, it was discussed and used a different format because I didn't, I didn't spend time after that, and also some parts are not that clear, so I didn't write that issue yet. But we can definitely think about it, and there will be issue to track it if we want to do some improvements. There is one more question. It's about so let's say we have this vulnerability template. So if this template is by default installed, so that means this policy is enabled, right?
No, so because our Helm chart doesn't actually install any constraint templates, it's up to the user to apply the corresponding template from our library into the cluster. So the Ratify installation will not install the policy. It's up, the user must install the policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after installation, if user want to enable vulnerability policy, then they apply this template file, then they update other configurations for different verifier accordingly, right? Based on our guide, like signature, like vulnerability report, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Akash has another PR to add the docs for vulnerability report. Maybe you can check that document to understand the detailed workflow.
Yeah. Yes. I think overall it's good, and the flow is similar as what we did before for the signature verification. And as I said, we can seek for improvement in the future. There are two areas. One area is how we can simplify the configuration for the user, because currently user needed to maybe update templates, update configuration for verifiers, right? Another area we can seek for improvement is that we want to use Ratify for different scenarios. Admission level, CI/CD, and other scenarios. So whether we can have some common policies that user can apply, because if we have this common policy for user, there's less learning curve, right? They know this same policy can be used for different scenarios. They just know I just need to update this record and other configuration, then it is done. So there are two areas we can think for improvements later.
Yep. Sounds good. But in terms of the initial feature, which will be released in 1.1, is there any hard blockers that you see that need to be addressed immediately, or is it just experience improvements that we can queue up later?
No, I think for this vulnerability report, this SPDX, Serif, right? And we verify, we pull the latest, we can verify signature. We will block a critical high, and we will also block the block images with CVE in the deny list. I think that's good. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Yep. I think one action item is if you could provide more guidance on the annotation, and if we need to override it. If there is enough of a need, I can update the current implementation before this merges. Otherwise, I can leave it as such.
Yeah, I will find time to discuss with Toddy whether this is the annotation. I think in the screen, right? Org open containers. I will confirm this with him.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
On the how to attach topic, Akash, have we seen other like walkthroughs or guides that uses cosine to validate the vulnerability report? Like, I'm just curious how the cosine attach works.
The only guides I've seen is when they use cosine with the in toto framework. So the vulnerability report is actually embedded as a predicate inside the in toto attestation. But I personally haven't seen where you have your serif report like we do, and then you sign it separately with cosine. But you probably have a lot more knowledge here.
For cosine, student, do you mean how cosine attach this annotation, right?
Yeah, if they have like this attach concept at all.
For cosine, it seems a different. They are using the attestations and
Got it.
in total framework, although they have their own format, not in the in total, but it's the content is still the not different, not the same as us. So it's the difference. So in their content, it could be they can extract the time from the format, because currently we are at this stage we don't wrap our for example serif report in any, for example, in total framework, right? It's purely a report. So unfortunately for that report there's no creation time, so we use this attach. But
Annotation.
in the future, in the future, if we want to use in total, for example, framework, so maybe in that case, we don't need to use auras to attach. But for that part, currently it is not clearly. So
so if a customer uses like cosine, and then they have their vulnerability report generated in like the different toolchain, it's unlikely that they would be able to use our vulnerability report verifier. Is that true?
Yeah, yes, but for example, if customer using the in total attestations, it could be similar serif format embedded in that framework. So if it is still serif, I think our verifier will work, but it's just maybe some other wrapper, something like that. We need to extract first and analyze first. Then we will have the content of serif. Then we can use this. So this is something that's uncertain now. So that requires some investigation to align on this, because in currently it is easy that we just attach different formats, right? But it will be maybe from the verification point of view, user need to configure different policies. For example, this is for vulnerability, then later we have spam. So maybe it is too much for the user. So there is also an idea that it could be, there will be a verification summary, something like that. It's also in the SALSA website. There is a called the verification summary. So it will be a simple, small, and conscious file that user just need to verify that file, then it is done. But currently, that part is not. We didn't have a solution yet, so it requires further discussion to confirm that.
Yeah. Well, this is a great start for us. Like, we're actually validating the information that's contained in these artifacts.
Yes, as you know that in the Hackmarkdown, I also mentioned the wax document, right? So that part it is also involving. We need to further discussion. So that part will be low priority. We don't need to do anything now until it is get clarified. Yeah, so it's an ongoing effort.
Sounds good. Before we wrap up today, anyone else have any topics for us to think about? We can add to the agenda next week.
One more thing for Akash, if I can have some kind of a build, I want to try it and also demo to the PM team to collect feedback.
Sure. Yeah, I can. So let me first update the Helm chart as well, so it's easy for you to install.
Okay.
And then, or how soon did you want the build by?
It's not urgent. It's just that you have everything, but in maybe in your own private build. I can just try that. It's not urgent.
Okay, sure. So what I can publish a private build, and then if you want, you can actually go follow the directions in the documentation and try it out, and that'll be a good indication of if the docs are up to par.
Yeah. Yes. I will try that, and also this is also a way to verify the document, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Great. Thanks for joining, everyone. Take care. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.